Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us is Lori Wallach, the director of Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. TradeWatch.org is the website. You can tweet her at Wallach Lori, WALLACHLORI, or at PCGTW, as in Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Lori, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much. Live from O'Hare Airport.
Oh, my. Okay, great. It's great to have you on. It's always great having you on. So this is the anniversary, more or less, this week or last week, the 5-year anniversary of the Korea Free Trade Deal. Do I have that right?
March 15th, this Wednesday was.
Okay, so how has that worked out for us?
Well, you know, it is remarkably bad. We were sold that one with the promise that it was new rules with high environmental and labor standards, which would mean more exports, more jobs. That was the slogan. 5 years later, our exports have actually declined. The U.S. is selling less stuff by 10% to Korea, and brace yourself, our trade deficit with Korea has doubled in 5 years.
Wow.
Sadly, that is a free trade agreement record, a record of badness.
Right. So why is it that most Americans don't know this?
Well, you know, especially why don't they know it given if you plug those numbers, the actual increase in the trade deficit numbers, and this is the government data, into the formula that the Obama administration used to promise us we gain 70,000 jobs from this deal after 5 years, it's over 100,000 jobs gone, just using their own formula.
Wow.
So why don't we know more about it? Well, the Obama folks sure weren't happy to talk about it because it was basically a rabid skunk of an agreement, and it is to some degree responsible for not being able to get the majority of votes on TPP.
Right.
Because a lot of members of Congress, Democrats, voted for this one. Obama said it was the new thing. He'd fix NAFTA. And then it turned out to just be a total failure.
Yeah.
And members of Congress, Democrats who voted for this said, learn my lesson, not doing it again on TPP. And TPP was based, Tom, on literally the Korea text was offered as the U.S. opening text. Now, why aren't we hearing about it now is the question, though, right? Like, you remember, I remember, then candidate Trump had a line in there, the, quote, job-killing trade deal with South Korea.
Right. Why doesn't he nuke?
Double deficit.
Does he have the ability as president to nuke that deal right now, or does that require Congress?
He can withdraw from that deal on 6 months written notice from the executive branch.
Okay.
And we're out of a lot of parts of it. But here's what's really fishy. The guy was so negative on the deal that folks might remember when he did his, if you have the stomach to watch it, when he did his Republican convention acceptance speech, he even mentioned the Korea agreement in there with NAFTA and the other thing he hasn't done, putting sanctions against China on the first day for manipulating its currency. So why suddenly has the administration gone flat out silent on Korea? I mean, at least on China, he keeps saying the same old stuff, even though other people in his administration are saying they're not going to do anything about it. On Korea, they've just gone radio silent. And here is my theory. It comes to pass that while he's been talking a good game on Korea on the campaign, he picked to be the special assistant to the president for trade right in the White House, this guy named Drew Quinn, who is the sort of bipartisan overtime biggest cheerleader for the Korea Free Trade Agreement ever. The man was in on the negotiations during the Bush administration.
How did Peter Navarro let that happen?
Well, very good question. He was in on negotiations, this guy Drew Quinn. His full name's Andrew Quinn. He was the economic counselor in the U.S. Embassy in Korea during negotiations. There's this great quote of him saying in 2009, this is the best deal ever. Then President Obama inherited it and renegotiated part of it. And the guy literally was one of the guys leading, now in a Democratic administration, the team to pass it in Congress. Then he went to U.S. Trade Representative's office where, yes, he rose to be the deputy in charge of TPP, the agreement that was based on the Korea agreement. So the man is a 3-administration, all-Korea FTA cheerleader. And that guy comes in, and suddenly it's radio silence on this agreement that, as you said, the president currently has the authority to just end. And given the trade deficit has doubled since we got into it, our trade with Korea exports has declined. This one really is a pretty good case of an agreement you wouldn't want to keep going forward with.
Do you think he's unwilling to rattle our relationship with South Korea right now, given the bizarre behavior coming out of North Korea? Could there be some real politic to this that actually makes sense?
Well, you know, it makes me hope to God that that is the case, because that's the kind of thinking you'd really want to have a president take into consideration. As much as I don't like that Korea agreement, any sane person is extremely unnerved about what's going on in North Korea. And also South Korea has been in a state with their president getting impeached.
Right.
So
they're in a crisis. Yeah.
One would hope that is the consideration. But here's the deal. If that were the consideration, then you wouldn't take any action. But you would still be mentioning the agreement as one that is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it just very peculiar that from the White House, there's been radio silence. Now, interestingly, from the incoming U.S. trade representative, a guy named Bob Lighthizer, who's a smart guy, been a good guy for American manufacturing, and he has been held up right now. His approval in Congress is held up, but he testified last week. He mentioned Korea as one of the big trade deficits. But the president, who's really had the bully pulpit on this, who talks about trade all the time, has just stopped talking about it.
You wonder if there's a Trump property in Korea?
I actually think probably the property in question is Mr. Drew Quinn, Korea booster, the new staffer, who is, you know, doors down from the Oval Office. He's in the White House staff.
So he's the guy, he's the pro-Korea guy. So when should we check back and find out if they're going to follow up on any of Trump's campaign rhetoric, or whether they're just going to let that die?
Well, you know,
probably after the election in South Korea. That's in June, isn't it? May or June?
Here's what I think about the Korea situation. I think we should watch when the USTR, Mr. Lighthizer, actually gets in the saddle to see what they do. Because there's plenty to do without actually chucking a brick at Korea. I mean, you know, this is Lighthizer's the guy who during the Reagan administration had a sort of come to Jesus session with Japan saying, listen, we're not going to continue with this trade deficit we've got going here in the 80s. There are two ways we're going forward. We're either going to sanction you unilaterally, or you guys need to figure out how either A, you're going to buy more of our stuff, or B, you're going to send us less stuff. You can do it either way, but the balance isn't going to stick. And he negotiated a deal. So let's see. But what we will have to watch, Tom, is in the next couple of weeks whether or not they announce China as a currency manipulator. Hard deadline on that is coming up around the corner, and they're trying to dodge it.
That's great. Lori Wallach, it is always great talking with you, Lori. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Lori's website is tradewatch.org. Check it out. And you can tweet her at Wallach, W-A-L-L-A-C-H, Lori, L-O-R-I. We'll be right back.